Hey guys, Taylor here from Beacom of Light. So in this video, I'm going to be talking to Will Reusch. Will is a really interesting guy. He's a teacher. He's based here in Los Angeles, California. In this little interview, podcast, whatever you want to call it, I talked to him a lot about teaching, a lot about wokeness and identity politics, and how that's sort of permeating in the teaching world. Will's a high school teacher. He's taught in East LA at public schools and is now at a private school here in Los Angeles. Really interesting guy. We had a load to talk about. We also talked about how we kind of look alike. So he's my brother from another mother. Give it up for teacher Will Reusch.
This is the fucking BeacomOfLight show.
Well, thanks for coming on, man. It's a pleasure to have you here. So I first, I think I can't remember exactly where I found you, but I saw some content you were putting out there on Instagram, really just calling for unity and conversation and promoting the scientific method. And the last guy I had on, Eric's Electrons, maybe you follow him. We had a pretty good discussion about something similar. So I figured I'd send you a message and try and get you on this thing. And I appreciate your time. So it's great to have you here. We're both in LA. I wish we could have met up, but it was kind of slightly impromptu, but it's all good. This is easy. We can avoid getting that little bug that's flying around. So that's a good thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Oh yeah, no problem. You know what? We actually look alike. Just like
Yeah, I was thinking we could be brothers in some way or
Yeah.
another. Yeah.
But yeah, no, Eric's awesome. He gives me a lot of shout outs, and he also I talk to him a lot just about different things. Smart dude, and
Mhm.
he, we just I've never met him, but just talking over Instagram and stuff like that. The Instagram world is kind of cool if you choose to use it that way. It's pretty great in connecting with people and sharing ideas. Yeah.
For sure, yeah. As opposed to what we were talking about a second ago, which is TikTok and Vine, or I guess Vine is not really a thing anymore, but Instagram stars doing prank videos or shaking their butts and getting paid millions of dollars to do that. Whereas, yeah, I mean, you're a teacher. In fact, that actually sort of correlates with how teachers are paid and related to their value.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder about that actually. If you want to get into that, like, my mom was a social worker growing up,
Mhm.
and I was talking to my parents are pretty progressive people, and I grew up in that house, and they said, well, the reason why social workers don't get paid a lot or teachers is because it's not cared about in society. But I push back, and I wonder if like the people who are these guys driving the Lamborghinis and stuff, who are Instagrammers and TikTokers and stuff, like I wonder if it's just scalable. Like,
Mhm.
how, like, nursing and social work and teaching, it's very hard to scale wide. But if you make an app that makes you look fat and bald, the fat bald ugly app or something like that, it's not like we think that's more important in society, but it just,
Mhm.
you can just expand that so much. Just buy an app for $1 a piece and it just replicates. So part of why I came on social media is trying to play with what would scaling education look like. And it's not easy because it's so personal, but what
Mhm.
would scaling education look like? And that's kind of what I'm playing with, because it'd be nice to have teachers driving Lamborghinis if they were good.
A lot of people don't seem to turn to the internet for education. I've been learning a lot about A+, which is just IT certification. I've been really interested in computing and IT in general, and there is it's such a plethora of information online, particularly YouTube. I've been watching this guy, Professor Messer, just hundreds and hundreds of extremely succinct, tangible and compact videos where I'm learning so much about IT. Do you think that? So tell me about first how you got into teaching, what inspired that, and then like what do you teach, and how can we translate more into scaling education?
Yeah, so I figured it out fairly early. I was like 20 years old. I don't have a good. I didn't figure it out until recently. Though. I've been teaching for 15 years, and uh, and a lot of students and parents have said like, oh, you're good at your job. Like, how did you figure this out? I didn't have a good reason, but I just figured it out a couple of years ago. It was I didn't like school. I thought school sucks. I like the social elements, but I didn't like going to school or anything like that. But I loved learning, and I think we all like feeling capable. We don't like being, in the dark. We don't like being made exposed as like an ignoramus or anything like that. We don't, we like feeling like, all right, I got this. I'm an expert or something like that. And we do like learning. We go on these crazy rabbit holes down YouTube and stuff like that. So there was a real disconnect for me of I like learning. I like being a capable person. It's cool to be like smart. I love like Goodwill Hunting and stuff like that. That scene in the bar, like that's so badass. But yet school sucks. So why? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like it doesn't make sense that school sucks, but learning is cool. So where is that disconnect? And I guess I got into teaching to try and explain why learning is cool and how school should be just it should be explaining that. It should be explaining why learning physics and learning chemistry and biology and English and history, all that stuff is actually cool, can help you to get all the things you want in life. And I just feel like there was a real disconnect there. I was watching these teachers teach and I was like, you're a loser. You're essentially telling me how to live life, but I don't want your life. Like I looked at my high school teachers and I was just like, ugh. So, like what is it that, I'm not going to take advice from you. So, I think that that's probably why I got into it, is just to try and like think outside the box about like making education something that explain that better. Yeah. Then I don't know. Was there a second after the question?
Oh no, I think that's awesome, man. Yeah, I definitely want to ask why you think there is that disconnect. I mean, obviously, just being young, being a preteen or a teenager, you're just defiant, and anyone who's older than you and has some position of authority, you're sort of innately, inherently bound to go against in one way or another, just against the grain, against authority. But anyway, yeah, my other question was, well, what do you teach? You're teaching here in Los Angeles, and then the follow up to that was how you think we could do a better job at scaling education.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you. So I teach social studies. So I've taught 6 years in public charters in LA in some tough areas and stuff like that. And then now I'm at a private school. I went to a private school because I wanted the freedom. I wanted to just be unleashed to just like teach what I like. Like the reason I got into it. I think a lot of they say education teachers are underpaid. I don't think it's pay. I think that you don't get into education for pay. You get into education to teach, and you want to be creative. And the way that like state standards are and standardized tests are and all of that kind of stuff, it just crushes all of that. The system crushes it. It crushes the spirit of educators. So I wanted to go to a place, and I actively sought it out to go to a place where they just said, do your thing. And I found it. And how I'm able to push back so much is I'm at a very good location. But I've taught everything in social studies. I've taught sociology, U.S. history, world history, AP world history. I wrote a civics class that I teach now that's really like anchored in like the intellectual dark web kind of thinkers. Yeah, I mean, all of it, economics, government, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so maybe we'll get to the scaling thing in a bit, but because I'm more interested I'm really interested in learning about the interworkings of teaching and how to sort of dissect why there's been this shift in ideology within the education world. I mean, obviously in colleges, I know you're a high school teacher, but obviously in colleges right now, 80% of the colleges, university professors are on the left, right? And 20%, I think, according to Pew or Gallup or whatever, are self-proclaimed Marxists. I'm wondering, do you see any of that in high school education? And how do you think that ended up to be?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a
Yeah.
lot. I mean, I actually just released a podcast of mine where I talked to a friend of mine who's at a very prestigious kind of, private school where a lot of celebrity kids go and stuff like that. And he had to cover up his voice and everything because he's just pushing back on it. He's just a mainstream, like run of the mill conservative. So he's not a racist by any stretch, but he's like, you have to disguise my voice. I can't show my face. He's terrified of it because it's completely possessing the colleges of education. at places like UPenn and Columbia, which are like the most prestigious ones, and then it's getting to the most like prestigious private schools, at least in New York and LA. So it's just a matter of time before it runs all the way down. It's a real problem. I think there's a bunch of reasons why, but essentially, I think that it's the kind of people who get into education. They're soft-hearted individuals, and I think that if you're talking about like critical race theory and stuff like that, it preys on those soft-hearted individuals. James Lindsay, who friendly with now, he explained it really well on Joe Rogan's podcast. Where
there's a book right here.
Oh yeah, I use that book all the time, all the time. So, and Peter and James have both been on my podcast. They're both like just incredible
Nice.
thinkers. But he explained like that's what makes this ideology so evil. Is it takes, and I've watched it, soft-hearted, kind, empathetic people, and turns them into something authoritarian through these Trojan horse ideas and concepts like anti-racism, social justice, these things that how could social justice or anti-racism be bad? It can't possibly be bad. So I'm going to go all in, not even realizing what I'm doing, what is going on. And it's like, hey, we're going to help, marginalized communities. Well, who becomes school teachers? The people want to help marginalized communities. So you go, okay, smart person, Ibram Kendi looking all, sullen, and Robin DiAngelo with her, high vocabulary and all that kind of stuff. Sure. Like, have you ever read that stuff? Have you read, like, it's absurd. Like Judith Butler or any of that stuff. Like it's really high level garbage. The ideas are idiotic, but the vehicle in which they deliver them is brilliant. I mean, it's like old school kind of Maoist technology, like techniques that work. But it's really sad. And what I keep saying, because a lot of people are pushing this, like, social justice, theory is bad, and James Lindsay, Helen Pluckrose, those people, Brett Weinstein, they're I think what they're missing that I get as a teacher is like it's bad for those kids. You can't tell these kids, and I taught in these communities that were it was just horrible. Like the stories that I have are just so sad and so just like it's just this breaks your heart. And what these kids need is grit. They need to not feel like the world is out to get them because it's so easy for them to feel like a victim. So what you have to do is you have to say, like, yes, this stuff is bad, but you know what? Like, you can conquer this. Like, you got this. You got this. No one can stop you. Like, all of that, like, go-getter, that, like, victor mentality as opposed to victim mentality. And that's not part of critical race theory at all. It's all about how things aren't your fault. It's all about don't worry about personal responsibility. It's all about how the system is out to get you. It's like, yeah, no, I don't know, sorry if I can curse, but it's like, no shit, the system's out, like the odds are stacked against you. But if I always use like the poker analogy, like you get a 7-2 offsuit, what are you gonna tell your kids just don't play poker? Well, playing poker is life. That's success. That's getting out of the hood. That's all this stuff. No, you teach them how to play. And if you get a really good rounder in there, like, it doesn't matter what the cards are. They'll just develop their skills at poker and they'll get good. And that's what we need to be teaching these kids in the bad neighborhoods is like, it doesn't matter how many hurdles are in front of you. You're just going to become this badass track star. You're going to build big legs. And then when you finally get to even playing field, you're going to crush the competition. And that's what needs to be empowering. And it's not. And that's the thing that's so upsetting for me and why I get so fired up is like, you're hurting the people that you think that you're trying to help.
Yeah. It seems like just like in college, if there are teachers in high school that are teaching this sort of social justice, identity politic, identity sociology, identity-based sociology, or worldview, it's similar in that they seem to have sort of, you have Marx, and then you've got a bunch of history there, obviously in the Soviet Union and whatnot, but then you have the 60s and the Enlightenment of the West, if you'll call it, or at least the Vietnam sort of era, hippie movement, and those people growing up to become college professors, and then people going to college being taught their sort of Marxist, identity-based worldview. And now those people are in high schools and colleges teaching our young people. And it seems like people, this new religion of wokeness, it's the new religion, and a lot of people don't realize it. And, there's a lot of witch hunts going on, of course, but, who was it? Bertrand Russell or someone who said, good people do good things, bad people do bad things, but to get good people to do bad things, it takes religion in a way. And I'm sure that there's some I don't know, nuance to that as well. But like, it seems like this wokeness is a new religion in a sense, but people don't even know it because it's not packaged as such. It doesn't necessarily have churches. It doesn't have a book that you can point to, although they're coming out more. You touched on Robin DiAngelo and Kendi. So it seems like people are, trying to do the right thing, but they're doing bad things for the right reasons, and that's scary.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to that. John McWhorter's book, I think he's probably finishing it up now. It's going to be great because he's focusing on such a brilliant dude. He's going to write a book about how it is a religion. But there's a lot of big differences there. And I've talked to a lot of religious scholars and pastors and rabbis and stuff like this about this stuff because I love diving into religion. I love talking about it. But there's a couple of differences, like the belief is there. Like you tell a Mormon, like, come on, golden tablets. No, that doesn't process. They're like, yes, golden tablets, and that's in the wokeness. But what there's not, aside from forgiveness, is the willingness to talk. I mean, they come to your door and say, will you talk to me about, Jesus and Jesus in your life? And it's like, well, I have disagreements about this, and they'll sit and talk to you. And so what's missing from this woke religion is the forgiveness element and the willingness to engage. You'll never see Kendi or DiAngelo or Rachel Cargill or any of those people ever in a conversation. I mean, Coleman Hughes has made a formal invitation to Kendi. Chloe Valdery, made a formal invitation to Kendi to talk, and he's just blatantly ignoring these people. These black intellectuals, including a black woman, just ignoring them because I'm not going to engage with you. So there's that element. And then on top of that is with religion, we have the separation of church and state. So if you want to believe that, all good, but don't institute it as mandatory. But wokeness is being instituted as mandatory. So that's like three big differences between the major religions. And, even if you think that one of the religions is dangerous, because there are factions within Christianity and whatnot that have dangerous elements, it's not being forced on you. It has forgiveness elements, and it has a willingness to engage. I mean, yeah, there's going to be pockets that don't want to engage and stuff like that, but a lot of them want to because they want to convert you. But the converting of like wokeness, it's only like a one way. There's no apologetics essentially, which we have in Christianity. Like let's talk about this through an Enlightenment lens. You read, Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis or something like that, or John Lennox at Oxford. Like there's a lot of really brilliant theologian, scholars that will talk about this stuff and debate Hitchens and when he was around and Harris, and you can watch that, but you will never see that with wokeness. Now that's a big difference, right? You know what I mean? Like it's so isolated. It only exists in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Have like these have been around since really like what Derek Bell, that was like the 1980s. And the early 90s, like Kimberly Crenshaw was like mid 90s. This is all new where, Judeo-Christian belief is thousands of years. People have been trying to crush it for thousands of years, and it's still around. So there's something to it that holds up. This stuff is so new. So it hasn't even been challenged. Even if it was being challenged, it hasn't been challenged over a long period of time. It only exists in an echo chamber where all these other religions exist because people have been trying to crush them for years and just haven't been able to. Not really.
What are some examples of this that you've seen firsthand in your education experience?
So I got out of the public school system in 2013 or 14 and went to this private school. So I've been out of it personally, but I have a lot of friends that still teach it, and it's there's so many examples. Okay, so one example. One of my friends who teaches in Orange County Public School or something. Within one semester, she had two. She failed a black student, and the girl was claiming racism. Now my friend is an Asian woman, and she said, no, it's not racism. It's because, and she had to go to the board or whatever and defend herself that it wasn't racism. And luckily, Asian stereotype, she had really good records, and she was like, look, this is an A paper, these are the mistakes on an A paper, these are the mistakes on a B paper, this is your paper, look at this, and she had like all this clear evidence about what it was, so she got out of that. But you can just claim racism, and right away you get a whole big thing behind that. The same woman, the same semester, the teachers on their ID badges were putting a little rainbow, like a pride rainbow. And they said, hey, are you going to put your pride rainbow on? Now, this woman is a friend of mine because her brother is my son's godfather, and he's gay. And when he was getting married, my wife was like the matron of honor or whatever. And my friend, the teacher, was the officiant. So she actually married her brother and his husband. And she's like, I don't want to put that pride thing on there. I don't want, that's like virtue signaling. I don't want to do it. And they were labeling her, you're a homophobe if you don't support this. She's like, look, like, it's a funny sentence, but like, I married my gay brother. Like, I was the officiant there. I love him more than anything. I am not a homophobe just because I don't want to put this sticker on, but she felt a lot of pressure to do that, to like put the sticker on from like everybody. It was kind of like ostracized for it. And I don't know if she eventually did or she didn't, but she felt like really uncomfortable just giving any kind of pushback. So it's just like, I have tons of stories just like that, but that's happening all over the place. A lot of virtue signaling to show I am kinder, I'm the most kind, I'm the most good person, look at me type of stuff.
Yeah, it's just shaming people into something and making them declare something that we used to be okay with, assuming they declared inside of them already by acting virtuous without regards to something specific. It just reminds me of Game of Thrones when I don't know if I'm sure you've seen the show. I don't know who knows. If you haven't, maybe you've heard it's decent. But you know, there's a scene where the sort of not evil, but not very well liked king in the first season is coming to Winterfell, and all the Starks, you know, the main family are standing there, and they all have to kind of stand about, you know, they have to posture up and look regal and noble or whatever, as though they're welcoming the king, which they were. And then Arya, the daughter, is like running around, and the father has to kind of smack her, you know, so she stands up and straight and looks. And it's just a show. It's a facade. It's a facade to show that you're a part of the tribe in a way, and it just reminds you of just tribalism, and it's been happening for hundreds of thousands of years or millennia. It's really scary.
Yeah, it's a shame too, because I was hoping that with the internet, it'd be one of those things where like there's benefits to losing some of that privacy and showing yourself to be more human. You know, like there's a benefit to like everyone like has on Zoom, and some people get caught like, you know, like masturbating with Jeffrey Tubin or something. But like, you know, like, I might like leave it on, like pick my nose or something like that. It's like
hands up.
Yeah. Here.
Yeah, we're just gonna be doing Zoom calls like this from now on. Like, I need to write that down. Yeah.
I mean, I do wear mesh shorts like all the time. Like I've been teaching mesh shorts for like 4 months. But like I just think that common humanity is a good thing. No one's perfect, and that's why cancel culture is so bad, because it's gonna come for everybody. Because you can't label people as perfect or declare yourself as. You just have to kind of say like, yeah, I have flaws. These are my flaws. Blah 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 blah. But when you label people as racist, sexist, homophobe, the problem is, and I had Daryl Davis on my podcast, who I love. You familiar with him?
Yeah, the Ku Klux Klan infiltrator. That's so awesome.
He's the best. And
so for people who don't know, he's a black guy who went and just with an open hand started talking to KKK members and wound up converting like dozens of them or hundreds of them. I mean, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
It was even more than that. He befriended them, like legitimate friends, not just like like you actually befriended them, and through friendship, like racism doesn't hold up. It's a crappy ideology. It's a crappy operating system. So it was so easily defeated through conversation. That's the thing. But what he has seen, even the modern world, is like real racists are out there. I was just talking to a former student of mine who's in DC, and he went to the Million MAGA March, and he's like, I sat and talked to a legitimate neo-Nazi and flat earther for like 20 minutes. Like those people are out there. So if you call me a racist because I say nice hair, then what do you call him? Like that's the problem here is you're muddling this thing, and you're lowering the bar for being a bigot and a racist so low that now we can't tell who's who. I mean, that's a lot of the issues that I have with the Trump stuff, is like it's a boy who cried wolf over and over and over again. That I said this months ago, and now it's kind of unfolding a little bit, is like, I don't know when Trump's going to do something actually dangerous now. I don't know. And that's the danger. And that's the thing with racism too, is someone calls someone racist, I just won't believe it. I have a friend who's a black cop. And he called me and he's like, hey man, you wouldn't believe it. He's like, we live in a condo, and someone like across the thing, there are a bunch of cops who live in this condo, and they had a Confederate flag on their wall, and I heard them yelling white power. And my initial, and this is like a friend of mine who I actually trust, but like my initial thing was like, bullshit, no way. But then I would have thought that unless I knew him personally, and I was like, man, that's crazy. But I wouldn't have believed it. Because I hear this stuff. I get duped by Jussie Smollett and the Covington Catholic kids over and over and over again, that now when real, scary, bigoted, white supremacist stuff goes down, I don't believe it. And that's so dangerous. You know what I mean?
I can definitely relate in that I've discounted the reality of that more than I should. As a sort of psychological, like pathological counter response to wokeness, and that this the boy who cried wolf mentality of calling everyone who speaks against or even criticizes remotely your ideology a white supremacist or something. I mean, or a neo-Nazi or fascist or KKK or just Nazi. I've definitely had that response. So of course it's important and that's another thing I'll ask you about, because you post often about the nuance and the gray area, and for example, Eric's Electrons posted something recently that reminds me of a lot of the content that you post, which is that I think you said, quote, your criticism of X doesn't automatically imply your endorsement of Y, and that you can criticize something and it doesn't mean that you're automatically endorsing the opposite or the converse. Well, you post a lot about that and delving into the nuance. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, tell me more about that.
I get it constant. So one of the things that I do is that I use social media for, that I haven't actually seen it. This is like something that I kind of came up with on my own, is I go to like prominent accounts. So it could be like PragerU, Huffington Post, New York Times, whatever, Daily Show is a big one. And they post something and then I make a comment that challenges what they're doing. Okay, so it's conservative, it's liberal, it's whatever it is. And the people come at me, it's so interesting, because the criticism that I make is just a criticism. It has nothing to do. I'm not highlighting, the other side. I'm not criticizing something on Huffington Post and pushing a conservative agenda at all. I'm just criticizing what they're doing. And same thing goes for like on PragerU or Breitbart. But they instantly go to, okay, you're a libtard snowflake, or you're a Trump Russian, whatever. Like it's you're go back to loving your orange man, and go back to your MAGA march. And it's like, I just like, look at my content. Like, do a little research. But they're just so in that mode of, if you disagree with me, it must be. And it's interesting because that's the same, back to the wokeness of, if you criticize anti-racism, that means you're pro-racism. And I've had intelligent teachers and stuff say like, how could you're against anti-racism? So you're telling me what's the other side to anti-racism? You mean, what are the pro-racism sides? I'm like, come on, are you kidding me? Pro-racism? Like, what year is it now? Like, I'm not. Who do you even see on social media saying like racism is good? You don't see that. I mean, even the people that are racist, they at least cover it up a little bit. You know what I mean? It's just people just have a very simple operating system and a very pixelated kind of view of what it is, like just very like a pixelated picture. Like there's just like it's very chunky and blocky about what these ideas are. So all right, well, if you're against me, then you must be all for the other side, and that's just not the way reality works. That's not the way I work. I don't know. I think just people are, and then so what I do is I say like, hey, do you want to have a conversation? I invite people. Every time I'm on my phone, I invite several people to do an Instagram live. Well, they say like, I get called an idiot a lot. And then, so I say like, okay, well, I'll give you an hour. Okay, come on an Instagram live with me in front of, after rewatching maybe 1,000 people, and we'll see. If I'm an idiot here, I'll give you a full hour to expose me and all my, my idiocracy. Is that the movie? Maybe I am an idiot. So I'll give you some time to expose that, and they don't do it. So because I think we're caught off guard, but like I think well, the reason I'm doing this is because if I am exposed as being dumb, that's a win for me. Because if I'm exposed to having a bad idea, I just exchanged my bad idea for a good one. Like the worst case scenario, if you have a conversation, the reason that I'm so willing to have a conversation, you're like, hey, do you want to do a podcast? I'm like, yeah, like we never even met. Like worst case scenario is you go, you know what? Well, this is why you're wrong for these reasons. Like you just saved me so much time and energy and headache by just now I can get rid of my bad ideas and I have a good one and I just stole your knowledge and now I'm carrying it. It's like it's such a knowledge hack. So yeah, you get a little embarrassed, but even that, like, yeah, I had a wrong idea. We're wrong about things. My students like when I'm proven wrong, and I like getting new ideas. I just feel like it's just a win-win no matter what. So I don't know. People don't want to be proven wrong though.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Does it seem like in education and teaching that what used to be welcomed for teachers, much like scientists, is the sort of the willingness to be proven wrong and to learn and advance your views and change your views as you go along as you teach, as to now, where it seems like, especially in universities in particular, I mean, there's a very closed-minded, set in stone way of teaching where those ideology, I mean, these people, so many of them have been boosted into their ivory towers and their coastal elite wine circles into thinking that they're right about everything, and that the flyover states and the Midwest, they're all a bunch of morons, and any conservative viewpoints, small c or big C, are just bullshit. Do you think that's been an accurate display of the transition over time?
Yeah, like one of the things that I heard, I think it might have been Brett Weinstein. I steal a lot from him. I steal a lot.
Oh, he's brilliant.
Yeah, him and Eric have just been so like influential from me and what I'm doing. But they said, there's essentially been an affirmative action of like ideologically possessed, well-connected idiots, and I'm friends with people all around now. But like people who are on the Upper East Side of New York, they have friends who work at the New York Times, and I asked them like, are they aware of their echo chamber stuff? And one friend I'm thinking of, she's like, no, oh no, this is the way they think it is, because that's all they see. And our algorithms are all catered. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people are like, I send them a video and they're like, whoa, I never saw that in the news. And it's all I see on like certain, you follow conservative news, they keep playing these same videos over and over and over again. And then you watch the liberal side, they only play this part. And I think people, having taught in public school and then private school, the kids who go to the best schools, Princeton, Yale, etc., some of them are the most brilliant, for sure. And then some of them are the legacy, and if your mom and dad both went to Yale and they donated big to Yale, you're going to get into Yale, because you're also going to get $300 an hour tutors for your SATs. You're also going to go to a great school. You're also going to have all of these different things to get you in there. And then from there, then your uncle works for this industry or this company or whatever, and then you go to that, because a lot of these schools, really, it's just like a social group. Oh, Yale, oh, let's go, come on, it's like
yeah, it's an echo chamber, yeah.
Yeah, it's all that. Like, it's like a club. Like if you go to a dance, like a dance club in like West Hollywood or something, like what makes the good club a good club? It's just hard to get into. That's really it. Same alcohol.
There's a line out front.
Yeah, there's a line out front. They have the cool connected people. It's the one that Rihanna goes to or whatever. And then you get in there and you have a connection to Rihanna. But so that's kind of what these universities are. It's just for connections. It's not really the education. And when you do that enough, it's almost like I didn't watch Game of Thrones, but it's probably like Game of Thrones, where it's like the king, the original king, was just this badass swinging a battle axe and conquering shit and taking things over. And then he has a son, and his son, like is raised in like air conditioning, and then like his son, and eventually this prince is like a pussy and like can't even pick up the battle axe. And that's essentially, I think, where we're at now, is these institutions like media and politics and Hollywood and academia, and a lot of these things are just kind of run by this person's son of a son of a son or daughter of a daughter of a daughter. And it's not the best and brightest. And the best and brightest are the kids in the hood who are brilliant, but they're not given like a pathway here. And that's where I'm really progressive, is I'm saying like, we got to make this pathway to get these brilliant minds who are in East LA into Yale or into Google to run these algorithms better or something like that. But it's not. They're up here and they're all up here. And then it's like the poor stay poor and the rich stay rich. And that's where I'm really progressive.
Well, we want as much diversity as possible, but diversity of thought is paramount in that. And different viewpoints from different people, whether that's based on your skin color or not, or both, is I mean that's what's lacking right now. People are pushing obviously for just a particular type of diversity. It's echo chambers, man. I was in Brentwood eating dinner the other night, my once a month fancy steak dinner. And I overheard these people sitting next to me, and I try not to stereotype people by the way they look, but dress does influence what's on your outside. Is sort of a slight projection of what's going on in your brain, and but more so, what was an actual projection of what was going on inside their brain was I overheard them talking about the election. This is a couple of days after the election, which I want to ask you about as well, just in general. And the guy said, did you know that over 70 million people voted for Trump? To his erudite wife sipping their, whatever $50 wine while businesses are closed and, the working class is being screwed in this country right now, or at least in the state at a minimum. And he said, that's the country we live in. And it's just this disconnect and complete out of touch, being out of touch with reality, or at least the rest of the country, that is so stark and staunch. And if you had talked to me, if I knew what I knew now in the year 2000 or something, when George Bush Jr. was taking over, I probably would have said the same about the other side, or at least having more of an influence in that regard, or less of an influence on the people on the opposite side. So it really is, the coastal elites now are some of the stupidest people I've talked to, and I don't mean that in an insulting way. Many of them are very smart, but in a narrow field. So that's what's happening. You get a lot of these people going to these universities, and they're in these echo chambers, they're in these bubbles, and they're focusing on a narrow field, right? They're focusing on biology or whatever it is. But then when they try and talk to someone who's a farmer about agriculture, or what the lower middle class is struggling with in this country, or even in poor neighborhoods, nothing. So they focused on, and then they pick up the New York Times, they pick up the Wall Street Journal, and they think that they're in the bubble that's right, and then there are outliers, and really it's almost the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, I love Naval Ravikant. I think did a tweet where he said, "We never had a lockdown. It's just the upper class and the middle class had the working class deliver them things."
Yeah, and while bitching about Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
How he doesn't pay enough in taxes.
Yeah, I mean, but if Jeff Bezos said, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna treat my people better. I'm gonna raise salaries, and I'm gonna treat them better to be a better working condition, because it's brutal to work at those fulfillment centers. But Amazon Prime will deliver between 5 and 26 days. You cool with that? No, I want it in 2 days. I want to get on my phone and order, hey, give me a beach umbrella, some cheese, an American flag, a baseball hat, and a pickaxe, and deliver it to my house in 2 days. Swipe.
That sounds like a good weekend.
I'm sorry.
Right. That sounds like a good weekend. Pickaxe, cheese, American flag, and a beach towel. What was it?
All that shit on Amazon. It's like, you want all of this stuff, but you don't want any of the responsibility for what it takes to do that. I think that when you say like they're idiots, or you said that they're dumb.
Some of them are stupid in regards to a nuanced and more full view of what people think in this country and in the world, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's wisdom, right? Like what the difference between knowledge and wisdom? They might know things, but they haven't experienced things. And one of my favorite quotes, I say it all the time, is a Pope Francis quote: "A good shepherd smells like sheep."
Mm.
You know, how can you care for marginalized communities or care for poor people or immigrants if you don't know them? Then how
Mhm.
can you possibly know how to help them? And
Mhm.
that's, you know, I'm so blessed to have a very diverse group of friends. And I have friends who moved from Indiana, and it was like open racism, to Sherman Oaks. And then in Sherman Oaks, it was like, I'll take care of you, black man. Don't worry about it. It's like, well, can I tell you what I need? No, no, no. I got it. Like, there's different
Mhm.
kinds of racism, but they don't have wisdom. They don't have experience. They've experienced so little of what it is to be alive and what it means to be a human in America, that all they know is what they know. And it's not even their fault, but because they don't even know that there's more out there, but they actively, then when they get challenged, they actively defend it. And that's where my issue comes in. That's where I think, as an educator, where I'm trying to challenge that, is like, just, maybe you're wrong about everything. And what
Mhm.
would that look like if you were wrong? And maybe just seeking disconfirmation to challenge yourself isn't a bad thing, but you have to go through that really ugly process of going, wow, I was wrong. I was closed-minded. Maybe I had some bigoted thoughts. Like, maybe, like, that's just like, it turns your world upside down. I think that's really hard for people, and people don't want that discomfort. So
Mhm.
they avoid it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 100% right. When people have been told that they're fragile and that they're weak and that they uh well, yeah, you just get the soft bigotry of low expectations from professors and a lot of coastal elites, Sherman Oaks, whatever. Just people saying, oh, they need our help. Well, you're their savior? I mean, we can all help each other, no matter, regardless of your skin color. uh,
I know. And that comes into teaching then too. And teachers have that element too. We're like, I got to take care of these kids. And
yeah.
I never think about, like, I need to take care of them. I'm thinking I need to equip them.
Hmm. Hmm.
I need to give them tools, and I need to get them essentially ready for battle. So, like, so if you're going into battle, you got to be prepared. You got to get ready to just get skills and abilities and a mindset to just take this hard world on, because they're up against some really tough odds. So let's get them ready to go. And as opposed to, hey, let's talk about how you're underprivileged. It's like, they know, they live it every day. They don't need more reminders of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. What are some maybe uh, s- noticeable stepping stones that some of your students maybe have achieved in light of your teaching, or any like noticeable advancements that they've made, or maybe some one aha moment that maybe you gave one of your students?
When I left East LA for the school I'm at now, I really felt like a sellout. It was like one of those things where I was up nights. I was talking to my wife about it a lot. Like, is this the right thing to do? I don't know, all that kind of stuff. Because I had some awesome moments with kids that I taught. I taught in, like, the North Valley and then in East LA, challenging areas. I had kids who, got out of a gang life and got into the Marines, and gave me, like, his medallion from the Crucible and stuff like that, saying, like, you saved my life. Like, little things like that. Like, you got
Wow.
this bad life. That means a ton. Like, it really does. And then I went to this private school, right? So, like a kid said, like, you kept me out of jail, right? Awesome. So I went to this private school then, and then one of the projects I used to do for my seniors was pick an American problem and then lay out how you would solve it. So one of my students, this is back like 2016 or something like that, he chose mass incarceration. And he wrote this whole big thing about how you do, job placement, lower recidivism rates, by all this kind of stuff. And then he reached out to me 2 years after he graduated. He went to, like, Wash U or somewhere like that, and maybe American University, somewhere like that. And he said, "Oh, can we meet for coffee?" I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, my project that I did your senior year, being officially, I was recruited into a think tank through my university to strategize how to restructure the American prison system."
Wow.
And I was like, that's why I'm at this school. That's why, is because the ripple effects, you can keep one kid out of jail, okay? Or I have access to 100 kids a year, whatever, 5 classes of 20, whatever it might be, okay? So So you have access to a couple, and then you keep a couple out of jail. But if you get to these kids in these more privileged, powerful positions, and you start instituting these ideas into their head, they're the ones going to those schools. They're the ones who are going to, Yale and into those clubs with Rihanna, and then they can bring these ideas in and really make impact that will impact those communities the most. And it's why I got into teaching, was to keep those marginalized kids from staying there and giving them a road up and a ladder to success. And I think that I'm seeing that now at the school I'm at now is pushing a lot of responsibility on these, privileged kids to say, this is on you. This is on you. Okay, you didn't ask for this position, but now it's on you to what is going to be your contribution to help your fellow Americans,
That's awesome. That's definitely heartwarming, to say the least. Very cool. So that the one kid, he picked the prison system as his response to your task, and then he went on to work for a think tank that was actually working on reforming the prison system. Yeah, that's direct correlation between. It's just a communication and moving on to actually apply what you're learning is a huge deal. What do you? So I meant to ask you at the beginning about scaling education and taking more of this sort of what I would consider a right way of teaching, which is broad and just is contrary to the wrong way of teaching, which is stern, teaching people that they're victims and claiming that you as the teacher are right in your philosophy. How do you think we scale this? And are there YouTube? So you have a YouTube channel. I definitely want you to tell people about that. Yeah.
I mean, my YouTube channel, I don't focus on, I'm kind of worn thin. I spend more time on Instagram than anything else. I kind of just picked one. I don't know, because so much of my success as a teacher comes from every day I have lunch with a different student. So even over Zoom now, but even when I was in person for the past several years, I pass around a calendar the first day of school and I have lunch with a different student. So I form these personal connections with these kids. And when you scale something, you can learn how to do anything. You can learn how to redo your bathroom, learn how to, change oil in your car, whatever. You can learn how to program a computer, build anything on YouTube, but you miss that personal connection. I don't know, but I don't think it's an impossible thing. Khan Academy is great and it's $1 billion company and everything, but it's missing the thing that really connects with kids. And I'm trying my best. I mean, that's essentially, it's a testing ground. That's what my social media is a testing ground of, is this able to convey ideas in a way you haven't seen before? It's just, that's all I'm doing on there, to try and get some sort of model for how do we scale education. But I don't know how to do that personal connection element. It's really challenging, and I just I'm figuring it out. I don't know, but I'm open to ideas if people have ideas.
Well, do you think that, so obviously the personal connection seems to need to take place in real life, AFK, away from keyboard, IRL. It needs to take place in real life, where people can have that direct eye contact and even a handshake or whatever, obviously appropriate physical contact. And so I don't know if this exists already, but in the private school world, is there any sort of organization or push for this more nuanced way of teaching? Is there something backing it? Is some sort of, something palpable that's tangible that's really backing a movement for? Well, okay, so Heterodox Academy, right? That's, maybe you could tell me more about that, and if that translates at all.
Yeah, so Heterodox Academy, the idea of viewpoint diversity, as you mentioned in the beginning, the colleges are just not balanced politically. So Jonathan Haidt, when he did all his work for the Righteous Mind, was saying this is a problem because now you're pushing morality through your lessons and stuff, and it's not so simple. There's a whole spectrum of different moral foundations, and I reached out to them and really pushed them hard, because I said by the time kids get to university, they're already indoctrinated into this one way of understanding morality. So you got to open it up to K through 12 education, and they have, which is awesome. But it's about diversity of thought and things like that, and that's part of what I'm doing. And I think that's a really important part. That's kind of where my focus is now. But that still, even when you do that, it's still going to be hard to scale. Like a great teacher how do you get a great teacher into every classroom in America and scale it that way? And I don't know exactly how to do that. So I'm thinking that it's something along the lines of me trying. I can just control myself, right? So like I'm trying to model what good teaching looks like, and then start a website and initiate Heterodox Academy to get people around to share ideas. And then you don't need to. It doesn't have to be about me. I really don't. It's not about me at all. Like I talk in my phone. I feel like a douchebag doing it, but it's just so I can push his ideas out. I will happily hook my trailer to someone else doing it, because what it's really about is my ideas and the ideas of these people that we're sharing about. So you don't need to have like online YouTube education. What you need is teachers who are all open to these good ideas. It just needs to be the education for educators needs to be better. And I guess that's probably the way to do it. I'm just thinking this through in real time while I'm talking to you. I think that's probably the way to do it is you make the colleges of education better. And then through that, then you could maybe I think it'd be really cool if I think Nick Christakis is really brilliant and he's at Yale. So if I would go to Yale, I would say, I want to learn from Nick Christakis. Or a student of mine was going to Tulane. I was like, you got to go to Walter Isaacson, the guy who writes all those biographies, and he's at Tulane. I was like, you got to take a class with him at Tulane. Is some people go to universities to be taught by like professors that you really like admire. And if you have a YouTube channel or an Instagram or something like that that's like really awesome and there's a following, people go, ooh, I would like to learn from him or learn from her, then maybe we can start a charter school system, more free market stuff, and they go, I'm going to go to that charter school because I want to learn from her. And maybe that's a way that we can kind of scale and get a little bit more competition. Then this charter school says, we want to pick up Miss Smith. And then it becomes a bidding war for Miss Smith. And then we can apply some of this free market stuff to education. I don't know. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but
no, it made sense to me. Yeah. Well, I'm thinking like, I don't know if we're going to be able to get many more Jordan Petersons, right? So obviously he's been largely influential and he's a teacher, he's a university teacher. But the main reason why he rose to prominence is because of some videos that went viral with him challenging the C-16 or whatever it was in Canada, the bill that mandated that you use someone's pronouns. So I guess maybe if we could get more heterodox teachers to get viral videos, that would be great. But that's tough.
Yeah, I think he's a great example. I went to see him speak a couple of times. At one point, I was singing this silent auditorium full of thousands of people, could hear a pin drop. I was like, I wonder how many like kids were just too hungover to go to their psych class with Professor Peterson, and now people are paying all this money to just like be in his presence and stuff like that. It's really interesting. But if he went to a university, he was teaching psych. Brett Weinstein and Heather Hein were teaching bio. Eric Weinstein was teaching math. Sam Harris or something was teaching, whatever, neurochemistry or something like that. Like, whoa, I'm going to that university. Like making intellectuals and teachers cool, like that might be the route. People say like, well, I think teachers should get paid like an athlete. Like, no, we shouldn't. Not enough people are willing to pay to hear us talk. And what Jordan Peterson cracked was that. He made millions of dollars. When was that, 2018 or whatever? He made like $20 million in a year just doing psychology lectures. That's a pathway for us to go, oh, shit, that's possible? I wonder if could you do like math lectures and stuff like that? And then you got to be just really good, top of your game. But maybe we could scale that down to all levels of education. But then again, your students don't have money. So there's problems here, but I'm open to talking about it and trying to solve them. I think
it seems like the main bit to crack would be having teachers push back on something to have teachers say what a lot of people are thinking that don't feel like they're in positions to say it, and someone like Brett Weinstein wasn't really in the position to say it, but he did it anyway, and he got fired from Evergreen, but now has a decent podcast that seems to be doing quite well. The podcast itself is fantastic. I hope it gets more and more viewers is what I meant by decent. But yeah, so it seems like we need people to really push back, and that's why I think I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing, because as a teacher who is coming from this place that does seem to be more and more in an unspoken way orthodox in its way of teaching and its way of thinking. We need more voices like you. We need people who are going against the grain, and more Jordan Petersons and more Brett Weinsteins and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I push back a lot on wokeness, but I don't really want to focus too much on wokeness because it's just so obviously idiotic, won't age well, all that kind of stuff. It just fits. It doesn't fit what good education is. It's as simple as that. It just doesn't fit good education. So I'll call it out, and I don't care if you call me a racist because I'll defend it. I know I'm not racist, and if you think I am, then let's talk about it. And people don't want to talk to me about it, so okay, well then you can think whatever you want. But it's like it's not even about wokeness. It's just about good education practice and bad education practice. And people are just like trying to get behind wokeness. And I'll die on that hill that it's a bad way to teach children, or a bad way to really orient your life in general. Like I'll die on that hill because I'm so confident in it. But like everything else we said, like if I could be proven wrong, if I could have someone sit down and explain to me why Ibram Kendi's approach is going to be good for Black and brown communities and America as a whole, and I actually could be convinced of that, I would feel so good, man. Like I'm terrified of where education's going. If you can convince me that where it's going is wonderful, I would love that. Love it. But it's not happening. So I don't know.
Well, dude, I'll end on this. A two-part question here. If you had to give one quick summarized statement to other teachers out there, what would that be? And then I'll ask the same about for students.
Okay.
Yeah.
For teachers, it's you've got to model integrity. You have to stand up for what you believe to be right, and you have to always be actually that's terrible advice because they think that they're right with wokeness. let me start that again. Stay curious. That's a better one. You can edit that. Stay curious. Be curious about the world. Be a lifelong learner. Stay curious is my advice for teachers. Always be curious about everything. Yeah, that'd be my advice for teachers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And what would you say to students out there that are maybe watching this because, and I've had some comments on my YouTube channel from people like this, maybe they're watching this because they're looking for alternative voices to the continuum of narrow-mindedness that they're getting in their schools.
Yeah, like, no one ever changed the world by towing the line. So, be a badass, push back, ruffle some feathers, challenge the people. What makes them so perfect and you so flawed just because you're a student? No, challenge them. And again, the worst case scenario is they are going to prove you wrong, and you're a student, so you're supposed to be proven wrong. But you got to take shots, like the Wayne Gretzky thing. Like, don't just sit there in silence. Ask a lot of questions. Ask your teacher, why am I learning this? How will this help me in my life to achieve what I want to achieve, whether it's about wokeness or anything? Ask questions and push. Your teachers should be working for you. So make them explain themselves to you and just be a pain in the butt and demand a good education. That's what I was. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Will Reusch, dude, thank you so much, man. I really like what you're doing. And, where should people follow you?
So I have a website. It's like williamreusch.com with like links to, I have a Patreon, trying to get, more support to Bootstrap for editing and things like that. Also ways to work. I would love to work with if there's any student teachers listening, you're going to be up against a lot. And I would love to work with you if you're a student teacher getting into the world of education. But my Instagram is probably the most popular one. And that's at Will Reusch. So WILLREUSCH on Instagram.
Well, definitely follow Will on Instagram because I don't know how he has enough time to do all the. Now I'm speaking to them, even though you're right here. I don't know how you have all the time to do what you do, man. Because not only are you teaching, but you do a really great job at length breaking down a lot of what's going on in the socio-political, philosophical realm, a lot of political points, and really shining light on multiple angles of the thing. And I think that's really impressive, and that's why I wanted to have you on. And you did it here. Follow him, everybody. Will Reusch, thanks, man.
Thank you, man. This was great. I really love this conversation.
Awesome.
Thanks.
See ya.
Whoa, guys, if you like the video, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, hit the notification bell. Feel free to donate through paypal.me/BeacomOfLight. You can also become a patron for very, very little. If you like the video, again, hit that like button, leave a comment. I'm curious to know your thoughts. I love all of you guys. Live long and prosper.